Okay, great. Welcome back. Lovely to see some of your faces and um, lovely to see some of your names. You're welcome to keep your video on or off. If it's more comfortable for you to just have the audio and not have the video going, you're more than welcome to do that. Whatever just feels right for you this evening. I invite you to make yourselves comfortable, first of all. So that might include sitting up in an upright position. It might include a meditation cushion or a bench. It might include a chair. I also invite you to stand up if you need to stand up. You might lie down or recline. You really have permission to. Nice to see you too, Jennifer. Thanks. I'm not so techie with the chats. Last time people were sending messages in the chat, and I didn't see them until after the fact. But thanks for saying hi. So yeah, feel free to make yourselves comfortable and make this work for you. Lying down is okay. Standing up is okay. You might even walk and put your phone in your pocket and kind of walk in a meditative way in your space or outside in your space. And so that permission extends throughout the entirety of this time together. I want you to really feel at home, and I want you to give yourself permission to take care of yourself. And if you need to move, you're allowed to move. So don't feel like you need to be a statue for this whole talk. And the invitation is, if you are going to move, do so mindfully. If you're going to change your situation, notice what it's like to change your posture. Okay. Last week we practiced meditation with a quality of open awareness, meaning you are invited to notice what's arising naturally within your awareness. So as body sensations became noticeable, notice your body sensations. What is that like? What's coming up? As your breath became noticeable, we noticed the breath. As the thoughts became noticeable, we became mindful of thoughts. As feelings came up, we were mindful of our feelings, etc. So there wasn't really a specific focus. And for me, this is a really natural way to practice. And it's really my go-to, what my practice kind of does naturally if I don't have a specific focus. And I'd been really doing this for years before I had the language to even talk about it. And it's wonderful. It could be really expansive and liberating, and can be really helpful to practice with this quality of open awareness. And it can be quite difficult and not always so helpful, because it's easy to be distracted by all the comings and goings of our experience. About 7 years ago, for the better part of a year, I was waking up at 4:45 every day and sitting for 2 hours so that I could have a really long time of meditation before my daughter woke up. And there were some mornings that were incredible and expansive and clarifying and liberating and peaceful, and all the things that you would hope for in a practice. And other times, after 2 hours, my timer would go off and I'd be like, wait, I don't think I was actually present for 1 minute of that experience. It just happened, and my mind was somewhere else and distracted, and lost in all those different ways the mind can get lost in dreams and thoughts. And so, in those times, I was probably better off sleeping, to be honest, than having some kind of a practice. So in my experience, and many other teachers would probably agree, that open awareness as a primary meditative practice is fairly unpredictable. And so it's difficult in that way, because the mind is unpredictable. one of my teachers says that it's actually the most difficult and most advanced way to practice is in open awareness. So for most of us, it can be more fruitful to take smaller steps along the way. And it can be really helpful to cultivate qualities of focus and attention with specific meditative practices. So we're going to begin that today. And I'd like to begin the process of refining our attention and what we call establishing an anchor. In the Buddha's original teachings, he described 4 ways of establishing awareness, or 4 foundations of mindfulness. So the first foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the whole body. So that's going to be our focus today, mindfulness of the body. The second foundation, just in case you're curious, is mindfulness of feeling. Third foundation is mindfulness of mind. And we're going to touch on those 2 next week, if you're interested, mindfulness of feeling and mindfulness of mind. And I'll describe what that means next week. And the fourth foundation is mindfulness of dhammas, or truth. And that's a lot to discuss. So we're going to talk about a little piece of what that means in a couple weeks. So mindfulness of the body, this is using the body as an object of contemplation or attention. The Buddha described the attention to the body as a source of joy that leads to onward deepening concentration. So this is one of the simplest and most direct ways for overcoming the suffering of Mara, or the forces of ignorance and delusion in the mind. And according to the Buddha, this is the basis for every practice that leads to awakening. In the original Pali texts, the Buddha is quoted to say, "There's one thing that, when cultivated and regularly practiced, leads to deep spiritual intention, to peace, to mindfulness and clear comprehension, to vision and knowledge, to a happy life here and now, and to the culmination of wisdom and the elimination of suffering." And what is that one thing? He asks his students. Mindfulness of the body. So there's a really common misconception that meditation is about transcending the body somehow, or entering some kind of exalted state of consciousness. And there's rainbows and unicorns and sacred geometry and empty realms of nothingness. And while we can certainly have exciting and interesting experiences when meditating, the point is not to transcend the body and reach these ecstatic states. In fact, the body is an important ally in our spiritual path. I mentioned this quote from Munindraji last week: "Sit and know that you're sitting, and the whole Dhamma will be revealed. The whole truth will be revealed." But this is really true for any of the postures. So it's sit and know that you're sitting, or stand and know that you're standing, or walk and know that you're walking, or lie down and know that you're lying down. So as my body's in this posture doing this thing, what is that like? Can I pay attention to that experience? I really get curious about my experience in this physical body. Mindfulness of the body is it's a wonderful practice because it can easily translate to our lives. So here's a formal practice where we do it very intentionally and specifically, but it gives us the quality of mind to do that when we're moving or interacting in the world. So we can do it while speaking or listening. I'm doing my best right now to have awareness of my body and have mindfulness of my body while I'm talking. So part of my attention is considering the words that I'm going to use and um, considering these ideas. But also part of my attention is, what is it like to actually talk? Noticing my vocal cords, I'm noticing the posture in my body, noticing the feeling of my hands moving. And so it's kind of like I'm splitting my attention on my physical experience while I'm also engaged in something else. And so we can do this all the time. And when we're talking with each other, we can do this while we're listening. I invite you to do it right now as you're hearing my voice. You can hear my voice and also notice what that's like to hear. You can consider what I'm saying and also what is it like in your body as you're considering these ideas. Are there any body sensations, or is any part of your body getting your attention? Again, from Joseph Goldstein, he says, mindfulness of body postures, just noticing as we move from one posture to the next through the day, it helps strengthen the continuity of our awareness. So this can be quite joyful, and it can be very peaceful as we do this and bring it more and more into our lives. And it can be a lot of other things too. So where to begin? I'm going to give some options, and feel free to take any of these options and try them out, or completely disregard these offerings. We're going to do a little mini practice. So we'll just drop in for 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll kind of come back. I'll talk a little bit more, and then we'll do another little mini practice. So again, I invite you to be comfortable, make yourselves comfortable. So one option when having mindfulness of the body is to bring a special awareness to the touch points. So where is my body touching something else? I notice the cushion that I'm sitting on. I notice the mat under my feet and legs. I might notice the clothing on my body. How are my clothes touching me? I might notice how my hands are touching each other, or how my legs are being touched by my sides of my arms. How is that for you to notice touch points? You might become aware of areas of pain or discomfort. Typically, these experiences really jump out at us: what's painful, what's uncomfortable. So I bring my attention to those areas where there's pain or discomfort. And can I be with that? Can I notice that? And what happens when I pay attention? Does that sensation change or soften? Does it intensify? Does it become hot or achy or stabbing or dull? And if it's ever too much, if the sensation is ever overwhelming, that I really invite you to let go of that focus on the sensation and soften your focus to something that's a little bit more easy and comfortable. So take a small sip of that discomfort and then come out of it. You might notice areas of pleasant sensations in your body. It's pleasurable right now, if anything. Is there any part of my body that feels open and soft, tingly or warm, or cool in a pleasant way? What's pleasant about this body? You might intentionally bring your attention to experiences that are neutral. So neutral is, it doesn't really jump out at you. You have to go looking for neutral. Pain jumps out at you, pleasant, unpleasant, those jump out at you. But neutral, you have to really just find something that's neutral. So I bring my attention to my left thigh or my right armpit, the back of my hands, anything that's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And what is that like? What is it like to pay attention to neutral body sensations? Finding neutral sensations can be really helpful if you have been paying attention or noticing pain or discomfort. A way to titrate that experience is to then consciously go to some area of neutrality. It doesn't have to be intense. And then if you're curious, you can pendulate back into that area of pain or discomfort just for a moment. But you don't have to stay there for too long. You can then come back to neutral. Another possibility is to even bring your hand to a part of your body so you can touch your face. How is it to bring a hand to your face or two hands to your face? Or you can put your hands, a hand on your heart or two hands on your heart or belly. How is it when you put a hand on your belly? Or even just bringing your attention to your hands touching each other. We have so many nerve endings in our hands, and a huge part of our brain devoted to sensing hands. So sometimes bringing our hands to our body can really intensify our awareness of our physical body. Can amplify the experience of physical body. Another helpful tool can be mental noting. So as I'm noticing a sensation in my body, I have a very soft mental note or word to identify that sensation. So I'm noticing some tingling, and I just say very quietly, the back of my mind, tingling, tingling, or tight, tightness. And I just have a soft mental note, and that helps stay present with the experience. Maybe spacious. So is there a word or a mental note that you can use to describe what's present for you right now in your physical experience? Sit and know that you're sitting. What is it like when I know that I'm sitting? I pay attention to this sitting. Okay. So if your eyes were closed, I invite you to open your eyes and come back into the room. If your eyes were open, likewise, come back. Here's a logistical question. I rang this bell. Did you hear the bell? Did it come through the speaker? No. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't do that. The frequency gets blocked somehow. Anyway, I guess I won't do that. You can't hear it. Okay, so those are some options, and it's helpful to have lots of different options because some of those possibilities might really work for you and others not, and they're all good. You don't have to do all of them. In fact, you can't do them all at once, probably, but some of them can really stick with you and be a good anchor for you to keep coming back to. So I invite you to play with that and see which, if any, of those possibilities work for you in terms of really helping you to focus your attention and stay here in this practice of sitting. Um, so, in the Buddha's original instructions, mindfulness of the body, that included mindfulness of breath because, well, the body breathes. So I want to talk a little bit about the breath. Of course, it deserves its own special attention, but we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll do another little practice with little special attention to the breath. One of the Buddha's cousins and close attendants, Ananda, he suggested that this practice of mindfulness of the body can be considered one's best friend. I love that. That this practice can be our best friend because we can always just come back to this breath. We can always come back to this physical experience, this sensory experience. As long as we're alive, we're breathing. As long as we have a physical body, we have a sensory experience. And as long as we're conscious, we can direct our attention there. So it's an incredible, unconditional presence for us, unconditional friend. um, and so regardless of whether we're in the midst of a proliferation of thoughts or dreams or overwhelmed by emotional storms and the ups and downs of human experience, we can always just come back to this practice. And it can really help us relax our nervous systems, relax our bodies, and settle our minds and hearts. And the beautiful thing about the breath, not only is that it's always there, it's always present, it's always changing. It's always morphing and moving, and it can be a long breath, it could be a short breath, it could be deep, it could be shallow breath, has different rhythms. So it's very interesting. There's a lot to pay attention to. And there's a lot of different ways that we could experience it. And ultimately, paying attention to our breath, it can bring us more intimately into our aliveness in our life. It can connect us with all the things around us. When we breathe, we're interbreathing with all living plants on the planet, with the grasses and the pine trees and cottonwoods that are affecting our allergies right now in the valley, and all the redwood trees, and with the ocean and the sea plants and coral reefs. They're all breathing with us, and all the animals and all the people, we're all breathing together. So it's this beautiful way to feel a deeper sense of connection to ourselves, but also to greater life on this planet. One of my favorite new poems, well, it's new to me, newish to me. Um, it's a poem by Hannah Stevenson called Ancient Language. She says, "If you stand at the edge of the forest and stare into it, every tree at the edge will blow a little extra oxygen towards you. It has been proven. Leaves have admitted it. The pines I've known have been especially candid. One said that all breath in this world is roped together, that breathing is the most ancient language. All breath in this world is roped together, that breathing is the most ancient language." There's a story that I love about the Sufi, Middle Eastern Sufi master, Mullah Nasruddin. And he lives in the archetype of the holy fool. And he went into the bank to withdraw some coins one day, and the attendant said, "Can you please identify yourself?" And he leaned over and looked at his reflection in the glass, and he said, "Yep, that's me, all right." So this is how the breath can serve us. When we start to pay attention to our breath, we're able to deeply connect with ourselves. And the breath can help us to become more present and help us identify who we really are. And in some cases, who or what we are not. Helps us see that more clearly. So again, how do we do this? How do we pay attention to the breath? Um, we're going to do another mini practice, and I'll give some possibilities, and we can just, instead of talking about it, we'll talk about it and do it at the same time. So again, I invite you to find a comfortable way to sit. Or lay down or walk, whatever works for you. Just find a way to be comfortable. So I might notice the feeling of air passing across my nostrils. What is that like to feel the air moving through my nostrils? Or I might have a special attention to the feeling in the back of my throat as the air passes down from my nasal cavity down into my trachea and into my throat. What is that like as air moves through my throat? Or I might become aware of the spot on my upper lip where the air is passing over my lip before it goes into my nostrils. And the air is cooler as it goes in. So you might even become aware of the temperature of the air. And as I exhale, the air is warmer. What is that like? Notice a warmer breath on the way out. Air that was warmed by the inside of my body. I might become aware of the rise and fall of my chest as I breathe. Or the rise and fall of my belly. How is my belly moving as I breathe? Some people notice their back changing and expanding as they breathe in and out, or the sides of their rib cage. And sometimes if it's difficult to connect with your breath, you can again use your hand. Put your hand on your chest or your belly. That can amplify the experience of your breath and becoming aware of your breath. For some people, it's possible and enjoyable to feel the whole body breathing. And you combine all those sensations, and it becomes this one unified experience of breathing. So is that available to me? Can I pay attention to the body as it breathes? And I'm doing my best not to control my breath, but to just allow it to breathe itself. Allow the body to breathe itself as it chooses to. Okay. Again, I invite you back into this space. You can open your eyes or just bring your attention back. So, what we're doing is not controlling our breath. We're not doing ujjayi breath or special kundalini breathing. There's lots of wonderful yogic practices and kundalini tradition that really have very specific instructions for breathing. That's all wonderful. We're not doing it in this particular context. We're not doing holotropic breath work. We're not, yeah, we're not really doing anything. We're just noticing it. And again, there's lots of value in those specific breathing practices. Um, so please continue to do those things if you love them and they work for you. Um, but in mindfulness of the breath, we're just watching, we're just noticing and allowing. And that practice can be very helpful in refining our attention and bringing us here into this present moment. So, what often happens is sometimes we're aware of one breath, we're really present for that breath, and then the mind has a story, or we start thinking about something else, or maybe we're aware of two breaths, and we become very present for those two breaths, and then we have a feeling or a thought or a memory, um, or maybe four breaths or eight breaths or whatever it is, and then the attention wanders. And we often will then judge ourselves, oh, I'm not very good at this. I'm terrible at this. I'm a bad breather. I'm a bad meditator. And um, I want to urge you to let go of that idea that you can be good at this or bad at this. Um, it doesn't matter how long you pay attention. One breath, 100 breaths. Every breath is just an opportunity to begin again. Each time you notice yourself wandering or you go somewhere else, you begin again. And there's the breath. It's there for you, ready when you're ready. Come back. And so we're not competing with ourselves about how long we can stay focused, and we're certainly not competing with each other. We're just breathing and knowing that we're breathing. You can't you can't be bad at it. If you're alive, you're good at it. So you get to just do it the way that you do it, and then have an opportunity to come back. And everything that happened in your meditation before this moment, it's just history. It doesn't even matter. You're just here again, and you're with this breath. So here's another story, probably my last story for today. I don't know. Um, some years ago. It was a sunny afternoon in Seattle, and there was a young priest, and it was after the congregation, and he stopped to talk to a woman from his parish outside the church, and her 5-year-old daughter was there. Her name was Carmen. And the little girl had a new jump rope, and she brought it with her to church. And now it's after church, so she gets to play with it outside. And the priest, who was still pretty young himself, he picked up the jump rope and started demonstrating. And he was pretty nimble. He had good technique still. And he was showing her how to watch for the jump rope to come over the head and how to time the jump so that she gets it just right and get into a rhythm. And then Carmen began to jump, and she got it once, and then she got it again. And pretty soon she was getting into a rhythm, and the mother and the priest, they were clapping very loudly. And every time she was jumping, they were counting and building up this momentum together. And she became better and better, and was counting to higher numbers each time. And they were clapping and applauding her, and she was so proud of herself. And the girl went off and started skipping and jumping down the street with her jump rope. And she would, go get on a little rhythm, but then she'd trip and mess up. And um, the priest and the mother were chatting for a few more moments. And then eventually Carmen came back with the saddest, wisest eyes. And she looked at her mother dragging her jump rope, and she said, "Mommy, I can do it, but I need lots of clapping." So that's what we're doing for each other by sitting here and breathing together. We're just like clapping for each other. We're applauding each other. You can do it. You can do it. And it doesn't matter how many you do in a row. We're just here and we're just breathing together. And that's really the beauty of Sangha, is that we're just clapping for each other. uh, a couple other notes that I'd like to mention is that mindfulness of the breath and the body can be difficult for us. It can be triggering, depending on our life experiences, depending on what traumas we've experienced. Um, it can bring up a lot. And so the body can store lots of pain and emotion in our cells. The breath can hold lots of pain and emotion and memories. So for some people, it's not even an option to use the breath as an anchor. It's just too triggering and too intense. Likewise, for some people, they have a very difficult experience in their bodies. They're in chronic pain, um, or they have different health issues that make it really too much for them to pay attention to their body. Um, and so if that's true for you, then don't do it. Let go of it. That's why we have lots of options. So it's an option to really pay attention to body sensations. And then within that, what body sensations are actually available to you in a safe way. Likewise, it's an option to pay attention to your breath. But then within the breath, there's lots of different possibilities of what that could look like. So how can I pay attention to my breath in a way that is not re-traumatizing or scary or overwhelming or too much? So we need to find what works for us, and also find a way to get the right dosage. So we titrate the dosage so that we're taking small sips of this experience if we need to. Another possibility about mindfulness of the body is mindfulness of sounds. So the body feels, the body breathes, and the body hears. So we can just use sound as an experience to focus on. And for some people, this is a safer experience because it's not so physical and it's a little bit less triggering. So if that's true for you, I invite you to use sound as an object of meditation. So what does that look like? As you're hearing my voice, you pay attention to the experience of hearing. And then as sounds from your environment come in, you notice them. What is it like to have a body that hears? There's birds chirping outside. There's sounds of traffic. on A Street outside my office. There's the sound of the air moving. So I just keep noticing sound, which is air particles vibrating and affecting my inner ear, and then my brain interprets them and experiences them as sound. It's very strange. We take it for granted that we hear, um, but it can be a wonderful object for meditation. So that's another possibility, is to use sounds as an anchor. And I invite you to play with it. And if you maybe already have an anchor that works for you, and this is all kind of old news, in which case that's great. Old news can be heartwarming too. um, but if you don't already practice in this way with a specific anchor, then I invite you to choose one of these and play with it in your practice for this next week. So play around with physical sensations, mindfulness of the body sensations, or mindfulness of breath, or mindfulness of sound, and see what works for you. And you don't have to make a lifelong commitment in this moment, but it really does help to just kind of play around with it for a little bit and then choose which anchor you're going to use, and that just becomes your anchor. And it's wonderful to have that experience of choosing and having that anchor to rely on, because then you just are making a conscious decision to come back to that. So now whenever I meditate, whatever happens, I get distracted and I come back to the breath. And not just the breath, but the specific aspect of the breath that works for me to help gather my attention. Or I'm meditating and the mind goes off, and then I come back to the body. And what part of my physical body is a helpful place to use as an anchor to bring my attention back to. And it's not that I don't also notice other things. So I'm paying attention to my breath, and then my body will get my attention, or I'm paying attention to my breath and I'll hear a sound. And then I include that also. But having an anchor that I'm developing an intimate relationship with can really be supportive to practice. Are there any comments or questions? How was that for you? What worked? What doesn't work?
The sound of your voice works quite nicely, and the rhythm in which you speak. I came in a little late, but I liked just another vipassana, feeling the clothes, feeling the breath.
Thanks, Tonya.
Easy to drop in.
Okay, great. Appreciate that coming from you, since you're a sound person.
It's so important.
Yeah.
How about constant sound that is in my head from tinnitus?
Oh.
Yeah. That's a great question. That happens to us sometimes. And if you can pay attention to that in a way that kind of where you can still relax into it, I would say that's a great option. Because if it's constant, it's always there for you, just like the breath and the body. However, a lot of people, when they're describing their tinnitus, it's not something that they can easily relax into. And so if you're paying attention to it and it's irritating, and it's kind of driving you nuts and it's amplifying, then I would say it's probably not the best anchor for you. And then it could be helpful to just bring your attention to one of the other qualities. So yeah, maybe the sound is still there, but it's kind of on the back burner, and the focus of your attention is on something that's more easeful. that make sense?
Yes.
So the question I always ask is, can I be with this? So whether it's a sound or a feeling or a physical sensation or a breath, can I be with this? And doing my best to respect the answer that comes. Sometimes it's no, this is too intense, this is too much or too irritating. Can't be with this right now. Okay, well then I don't have to. I can choose to bring my attention somewhere else. And actually remembering that can be incredible for the nervous system, to just give myself that agency to choose to focus on something else and choose to regulate and find resource in a different way. Any other comments or questions? Hey. There's some comments in the chat. Maybe I'll look at those. Okay, nothing specific, I think. Oh, some people said they lost sound. Oh, okay, there we go. Joan says, my anchor has been my breath for years. When we started that practice, the words that came were, hello, darkness, my old friend. Okay, thanks, Joan, for sharing that. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Was it like that? Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Lovely to share this time with you again. And yeah, I'm curious how your practice goes this next week. If you pay attention to your practice in a different way, or you experiment with your anchor in a different way. And next week, we'll talk about something that's fun and interesting and challenging, which is mindfulness of feeling and thoughts. So if that interests you, we'll do a little practice around that next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great evening or morning for some of you.
Mhm.